one event where you are. I'm glad you've tuned in to say hi and to connect with what we're doing. My name's Joy. I'm on the leadership team of Ground Level, and it's my privilege and pleasure to have one of my favourite activists and reformers here with me, Mr. Ben Cooley, who I'll introduce in a minute. We're doing a series of interviews with people who are bringing transformation and advancing the kingdom wherever God's placed them. Our vision as a network is to be a movement of churches advancing the kingdom everywhere. And when we say everywhere, we mean everywhere in all spheres of society. So here's Ben. Ben leads an amazing organisation called Hope for Justice. Hi, Ben. Why don't you tell us kind of how you've arrived, where you are and what you do?
Oh, yeah, so great. Thanks, Joy. I appreciate it, and appreciate the leadership team of One. Ben, loved speaking there a few years ago, and it's a different format now, right? It's a different format, different world that we live in. So I started Hope for Justice 11 years ago. I was an opera singer, but started Hope for Justice after hearing about the issue of modern day slavery. Did an awareness event back in 2008, got 5,884 people to our first event, and since then I've kind of grown it to 10 countries, 32 locations, helped 102,000 children in our programs, whether that be through prevention, rescue, restore, or reform. We want to live in a world free from slavery, and we're building that dream and making it a reality.
Wow, that's so amazing, so inspirational. And we've been chatting to people about the kind of season that we're in at the moment, as it feels like everything's been chopped up and changed, like the world might never be the same again. And as we're the people of the different story and the hope, as we start to imagine what does it look like to kind of rebuild our nation and maybe the nations, based on that vision of heaven coming to earth, the new city that John saw in the book of Revelation, I'd love for you to just share with us some of your heart and your dream for what could it look like for the church to engage in society, to bring reformation, to reform things, to make it look more like heaven comes. Share some of your kind of inner passion and frustration and hope for the world.
Oh, I mean, frustration is the precursor to innovation, right?
Yeah.
So just think about that just for one moment. That, like, some of you right now might be in a really frustrated mode of thinking that the world has changed. But reality is frustration is an invitation to innovation. And innovation is seeing what everyone else is seeing, but thinking what no one else has thought. Well, I used to think that. But I actually now think, and this is a call to action, is to go, innovation is seeing what everyone else is seeing, thinking what no one else has thought, but it's in the power of implementation. It's in the power of execution that you actually start seeing social change. Wow. So let's just backtrack just a little bit, just to give actually what's happening, in my view anyway, from what I can see from what COVID-19 has done throughout the world, right? So there's 3 stages to a pandemic. I don't know if you know this, but there's 3 stages. The first stage is actually what we're talking about a lot at this point in time, which is actually fighting the virus, right? The impact on the virus, how it affects the health systems and how it affects human lives, and reducing the virus's impact, right? So that's the first stage of how you fight a pandemic. Second, or the impact of a pandemic. The second phase is the economic impact, right? So because in the first stage we shut down all the businesses, we've seen a massive change within the economy. 40 million people in America have lost their jobs. Hundreds of thousands of people here in the UK have lost their jobs. The UN says that 1 billion people that were in temporary work in China, in India, and other places like that have been displaced from their work. So, the second phase is we're starting to see the impact of that, and what that will mean for the church, because that means food banks are going to be needed. That's CAP centers, and the need is going to be profound in the next 6 to 12 months, right? The third phase is unbelievable, right? Which is the impact on supply chains, right? So if you imagine that in Uganda, for example, right? I have offices in Uganda, and my staff rely on for them not just to do their job, but they rely on their families harvesting and farming, right? And so now that they've adopted our strategy of lockdown, which they've never done, right? So globally, this has never been done,
Yeah.
right? So they've shut down, they've locked down, so they haven't been able to go and harvest their crops, therefore they can't sow their crops. And so for the first time in history, I've seen on a risk register, food poverty for staff members that are employed at Hope for Justice, right? You look at like legislation that's changed in the third stage, right, of how so like in India, for example, there's parts of India that have actually banned human rights legislation for 3 years so that businesses can get back to production with little or no regard for human lives within human trafficking, slavery, child labor, etc., etc. You've got businesses here in the UK. We've started a consultancy business that helps businesses address slavery in their supply chain. We represent 9 of the FTSE 100 companies, and one of the FTSE 100 companies leaders said to me, we've taken 9 to 10 years step back in our human rights agenda in our business, right? So, you know, the problems that we're going to face through COVID-19 are profound. You know, you look at the report that UNICEF said that 12,000 people extra a day are dying from starvation because of how lockdown has been managed, right? Now, I know it's terrible, the first stage, the virus impact, but actually how we've handled the virus is going to have profound impacts across the world, and often it affects the world's poorest. Right, now enter the church. Innovation is seeing what everyone else is seeing, but thinking what no one else has thought. But it's in the power of implementation. Do you know what I think the greatest invitation this is, if I can, the one thing that's been taken from us, the one thing that we have always talked about as leaders, always celebrated. Whenever I meet leaders, they love to do this to me. They love to show me their buildings.
Yeah.
It's now ever more present that it's not about a building.
Yeah.
It's about people.
Yeah.
And now we have got a problem because people are dying from starvation.
Yeah.
I haven't even talked about the impact on mental health. You've got all of these challenges. Now enter the church, right? The Acts church that what? Sold everything and gave according to what? Need.
Yeah.
Well, now's our time. Now's our turn, right?
Absolutely.
You know, it's our moment in time to actually get into politics. It's our moment in time to get into business. It's our moment in time to get into social activism. It's now our moment in time because the need is there. We've all been shaken up, and never has the world felt so global and local at the same time. We feel it. There's people searching for something. Well, now enter the church.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? So don't just see it. Don't just have great thoughts, but actually, what are you going to implement?
Yeah, wow. So we've been like chatting to different people about their kind of vision and also what they need to be able to kind of get on the starting blocks and do what they need to do. What would you say? Like, so I totally agree with you, implementation, but there's loads of reasons why I'm sure numerous people had a kind of heart to stop human trafficking, but only Ben Cooley got up and went, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. What do you think we require for implementation?
Yeah, I love that. Are you ready? So I know this is going to sound really, really simple, right? But just start, right? Well, I don't know. What do I need? Just help one person.
Right.
Just reach out to one. Just phone up someone. Now, here's the thing. I think one of the things, if you're going to have a larger vision other than just reaching someone on your street, right?
Yep.
If you want to reach multiple streets, then you can't do that alone. So the main piece of advice is you are a byproduct of your environment. So choose your environment well, right? That means this. Choose people who can actually amplify, accelerate, and make your vision a reality. That's the best thing that I did, was I surrounded myself with someone who led a FTSE 250 company, someone who was involved in senior law enforcement. I involved a lawyer, and suddenly this team started building because vision is built by a team. Wow,
that's amazing. So find some friends who inspire you and propel you into what you want to do. Yeah. How do you know, like we're looking at, you said we need people in the church to be in politics, social change, social action, education. Talk to us a bit about what you see for the UK. Like, you're a man of vision. what potentially could change if the church actually got out of the walls and began to bring even just the small things that we've got in our hands to.
Well, I mean, you're mentioning slightly the 7 mountains, aren't you? Of influence, which is, media, education. I think there's multiple visions within that vision, right? But I think the main thing that needs to happen is that we bring a sense and an overwhelming sense of God's love, right? Like that and that transcends all of kind of then the whether you want to end slavery, whether you want to end poverty, because if there was just more love in the world, right? I know it sounds silly, innit? All you need is love, da 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 da. But actually, the reality is, it's for God so loved
the world.
So what's the motivation of your vision? Someone used to say to me, Ben, why do you want to end slavery? I say, I hate trafficking. And then a few years after that, I was like, oh man, I don't think hate is a great motivation. Maybe love it. And I think what we need to do is just get politicians to love more.
Yeah.
We need to get businesses to love the people more. And like I'll end with this thought that like we follow a carpenter, right? We follow a shepherd. And one of my great mentors, I saw it on his Facebook post, and he said, what good is a shepherd if he doesn't smell like the sheep?
Wow. Yeah.
And I think, what's the vision? It's to smell like the sheep.
Wow.
It's to bark. It's to understand what it is to be a leader of people.
Wow.
And I think that's the greatest lesson I'm learning at the moment. How do you do that through Zoom? How do you do that through where people are dying because of starvation? How do you smell like a sheep? Yeah. How do you smell like a leader that cares for those that are going through mental health, that are isolated, lonely? How do you build it so that it's about the people? When I checked, the temple got torn in two, and at that point in time, the presence became about the people.
Yeah, amazing, Ben. Thank you. Just 12 minutes with you inspires my heart to know that I've got something to bring, and that I want to see the church rise up and be mobilized to bring everything that she can bring to our nation and beyond. So thank you so much, Ben. I'm going to be inspired to pray. And for anyone who's been listening as well, we pray that the thing that God's put in your hand will be activated and implemented over the coming few weeks and months as you trust in God and smell like the sheep, the people he's put around you. Amen. Thanks, Ben.
No worries.